Imagine passing a federal law that strips states of billions in tax revenue and doing it in just 45 minutes.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Or suddenly rolling out mandatory drug tests for 5,000 airline pilots literally overnight.
Which is a logistical nightmare, by the way.
Completely. It makes you realize that the rules governing our lives aren't written in stone. They're written in pencil. And right now, someone is furiously erasing and redrawing those lines.
Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today is Thursday, August 13th, 2026.
Today, we're navigating a maze of legal reversals, high-stakes battles over state resources, political theatrics, and sweeping global trade tariffs that will absolutely impact our skies.
If you are looking to cut through the noise of the news cycle, you are in exactly the right place. We are unpacking 11 distinct stories today, looking at what happened and why it actually matters to you.
Let's get right into it.
Let's start with a sudden pivot in the legal education world. According to the Hindu, the Bar Council of India, or the BCI, completely withdrew a highly controversial directive.
Right, the Nalsar situation. Exactly. Just hours after issuing it, they reversed an order that froze the enrollment of the 2026 graduates from the Nalsar University of Law.
And we should be clear, this wasn't some administrative glitch. This was a direct retaliation, right?
It really was. The initial freeze was ordered by BCI Chairman Manan Kumar Mishra. He paused these enrollments to launch an inquiry into a student campaign.
The protest about the convocation speaker?
Yeah. The students were actively opposing Chief Justice of India Surya Kant, acting as the chief guest for their graduation. And their opposition stemmed from remarks the Chief Justice made regarding the NEET protesters.
Right.
Ultimately, the BCI backtracked. They stated they realized the vast majority of graduates were innocent of any disrespect.
Wait, if the vast majority were innocent, who exactly is the BCI blaming here?
Well, the Hindu noted they are waiting on a report from the Nalsar Vice Chancellor because they believe outside instigators and a small number of teachers were behind it.
I mean, you really have to ask yourself if there is any actual proof of that. Outside instigators is the oldest excuse in the book for administrations trying to delegitimize a genuine student grievance, you know?
It's definitely a familiar playbook.
It is. This is a massive professional body using its licensing power to intervene in campus politics. Does the Bar Council really have the mandate to police how students peacefully protest a graduation speaker?
It certainly blurs the line between professional ethics and free speech. We will have to see what that Vice Chancellor's report actually uncovers.
Yeah, that would be interesting.
For now, let's shift from the legal authority over individuals to the federal authority over natural resources.
This next one is a textbook example of power just shifting overnight.
It's massive. As reported by the Telegraph India, Parliament has passed the Mines and Minerals Amendment Bill 2026.
And they did this incredibly fast.
They managed to push this through in a mere 45 minutes via a voice vote. The stakes here are huge. This legislation explicitly strips state governments of the power to levy taxes or cess on mining companies.
Hold on, didn't the Supreme Court just weigh in on this exact issue?
They did. Just weeks ago, a 9-judge constitutional bench affirmed that states absolutely had the right to collect those taxes.
Wow.
Yeah. This new 45-minute voice vote essentially nullifies that landmark 2024 Supreme Court judgment. Mines Minister G. Kishan Reddy defended the move.
What was his argument?
He argued that unpredictable, non-uniform state-level taxes were creating a massive fiscal burden on the mining sector. He said it was making extraction commercially unviable.
But look at this from the state's perspective. Think about it like a landlord who just lost the right to collect rent, but is still legally on the hook to pay for all the property damage the tenant causes.
That's a really good way to put it.
The opposition here, from leaders like the BJD's Manas Ranjan Mangaraj and the JMM's Mowamaji, is entirely rooted in reality. Resource-rich states like Odisha, Jharkhand, and Chhattisgarh bear the brunt of mining.
Right.
Jharkhand alone sits on 40% of India's mineral reserves, and the extraction ruins local roads, depletes the water table, pollutes the air.
It's heavy industrial damage.
Exactly. Those state taxes were meant to offset that specific environmental damage. By centralizing this power, you are essentially telling these states they have to absorb the local devastation while the central government controls the financial upside.
It's a profound shift in federalism. They're centralizing economic efficiency at the expense of local autonomy. Let's move from the economic debates of resource extraction directly to the human and environmental costs of building on top of those resources.
Because those environmental costs are incredibly steep.
They are, and we have a tragic example today. We are looking at a report from the Times of India regarding a disaster at the THDC tunnel in Mayapur in the Shamoli district.
What happened exactly?
A landslide triggered a massive cavity, causing slush and water to completely flood a 2-kilometer tail race tunnel.
Okay.
For context, a tail race tunnel is the channel that carries water away from a hydroelectric power station after it has passed through the turbines. It is being built by the Hindustan Construction Company.
How deep inside the mountain did this cave-in happen?
The cavity formed about 1.4 kilometers inside.
Oh my God.
Yeah. 14 workers from the shift were rescued, but the toll is heavy. 7 workers are dead, and 2 remain missing as the search continues.
This is a recurring, systemic nightmare in the fragile Himalayas. You have this relentless push for infrastructure highways, deep mountain tunnels, massive hydropower dams, and it constantly collides with the geological reality of the region.
Especially during the monsoon season.
Right, when the Earth is incredibly unstable. Yes, the government argues these connectivity and energy projects are vital for the national grid, but you have to push back on the pace and scale.
I mean, an entire mountain caving and 1.4 kilometers deep is terrifying.
Exactly. You have to ask, are regional energy needs superseding basic geological safety? Environmentalists have warned for decades that the Himalayas cannot physically sustain this much drilling.
It is a devastating reality for the families of those workers, and it forces us to connect the systemic failures that endanger everyday workers to civil society's demand for a total overhaul of the political system.
A demand that really seems to be gaining serious momentum ahead of Independence Day.
Yes, according to the Deccan Herald, activist Sonam Wangchuk has released a video urging a peaceful revolution in how India selects its leadership.
A peaceful revolution.
That's his phrase. He is warning that unless citizens step up to find fearless leaders of substance, India is going to severely struggle to meet its developmental goals by 2047.
He brought some pretty striking numbers to back that up, right?
Yeah, he did. To illustrate why the system needs an overhaul, Wangchuk highlighted some alarming statistics. Nearly half of all current members of parliament face criminal accusations.
Half.
Half. And a third are dealing with serious charges like murder, rape, or kidnapping.
He specifically compared India's 2047 trajectory to neighbors like Thailand and Malaysia, pointing out how much faster they've modernized over the last 50 years.
Yeah, that comparison was stark.
But what's truly striking is his timeline regarding our own recent history. Wangchuk claims that despite the massive 2012 anti-corruption movement, which famously resulted in a huge political turnover, corruption, and injustice, have actually grown 2 to 3 times larger since then.
Which is pretty depressing if true.
It is. It poses a very uncomfortable question for you to consider. Do our democratic processes actually possess the mechanisms to filter out criminality?
That's the core of it.
If you look at the numbers he is citing, it suggests the mechanics of leadership selection are fundamentally broken, regardless of which political party happens to be holding the reins.
It is a heavy question about the ethical foundation of the nation's governance. Let's transition from Wangchuk's serious plea for political substance to a moment of pure political theater between our current leaders.
Theater is putting it mildly.
The print covered the recent Rajnamat Congress convention in New Delhi, where Rahul Gandhi decided to stage a highly choreographed hug with his colleague, Sandeep Dikshit.
Wait, like a staged hug?
Yes. The stated goal was to mock Prime Minister Narendra Modi's approach to foreign policy. Gandhi told the audience he was going to demonstrate Modi's diplomacy, walked across the stage, and embraced Dikshit.
Oh, I see.
And Dikshit leaned into the bit, asking if Gandhi thought he was Italian Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni.
Right, a direct nod to those viral internet memes about Modi and Meloni. I'm sure the BJP leadership loved that.
They did not. MP Nishikant Dubey publicly questioned Gandhi's mental state. And Bandi Sanjay Kumar dismissed the entire stunt as gutter-level behavior that just drags down national discourse.
But, you know, if you peel back the layers of the joke, Gandhi was actually trying to make a serious point. The print reports he followed up the hug by criticizing India's diplomatic strategy in the West Asia conflict.
He said we missed an opportunity there.
Yeah, he claimed the government missed a crucial opportunity to mediate in Iran. He also brought up ongoing border tensions, claiming Chinese forces have actively blocked Indian patrols in Arunachal Pradesh.
Which are major foreign policy issues.
They are. Here is the pushback, though. Is this effective political messaging? Does staging a mock hug for a viral video clip actually force a debate about complex supply chains or national security on the border?
Probably not.
Or does mocking foreign policy just trivialize those life and death debates?
When the optics completely overpower the underlying policy critique, The message is arguably lost. We will pivot from the weaponization of diplomatic symbols to a fiery debate over a domestic national symbol ahead of Independence Day.
It proves that the history of our symbols is never as straightforward as we are taught.
According to the Times of India, Karnataka Home Minister Priyank Kharge has leveled a very public criticism at the BJP and the RSS regarding the current Har Ghar Tiranga campaign.
Over the history of the flight itself.
Yes, Kharge pointed to a specific historical detail. For over 5 decades after India gained independence, the RSS did not officially hoist the tricolor at its Nagpur headquarters.
5 decades?
Right. They finally do so in 2002. Historically, they favored hoisting the Bhagwa Dwaj instead.
Just for those who might not know, the Bhagwa Dwaj is the traditional saffron swallowtail flag that represents the RSS ideology, which is distinct from the national tricolor.
Exactly. And Kharge is essentially using that history to challenge their current authority. He demanded the BJP explain this 5-decade gap before issuing what he called Desh Bhakt certificates, or patriotism certificates, to everyday citizens.
This is a fascinating collision of institutional history and modern political branding.
It really is.
Prime Minister Modi launched the Har Ghar Tiranga campaign back in 2022 to encourage people to build a personal, physical connection with the national flag at their homes. Kharge is intentionally dragging the RSS's historical practices into the 2026 spotlight to disrupt that modern narrative.
Why now, though?
Well, why is the history of the flag suddenly a battleground? The RSS will argue that organizations evolve, and the campaign today is purely about national unity. But Kharge is wielding their historical consistency as a weapon.
Right, asking about their moral authority.
Essentially asking, if you didn't fly the flag for 50 years, what gives you the moral high ground to demand everyone else fly it today?
It is a fierce battle over who actually gets to claim ownership of the nation's ultimate symbol. Let's move from ideological clashes over national symbols to a terrifying moment of physical violence against a political figure.
And a massive, glaring question about how we secure those figures.
The New Indian Express is reporting a disturbing incident in Maharashtra. Sukhbir Singh Badal, the president of the Shiromani Akali Dal and former deputy chief minister of Punjab, was attacked at the Takht Sri Hazur Sahib Gurdwara.
That's a major religious site.
Yes. He was injured in a Kirpan attack carried out by a Nihang.
To clarify those terms for you, a Nihang is a member of an armed Sikh warrior order, known for their traditional blue robes, and a Kirpan is a ceremonial sword carried by Sikhs.
A police inspector intervened during the attack and was also injured. Badal, fortunately, only sustained minor injuries to his hand, which required a few stitches.
He's okay.
Yes. Chief Minister Devendra Fadnavis has confirmed Badal is stable and ordered a high-level inquiry.
What makes this so alarming is that this isn't an isolated event. Think back to just December 2024. Badal survived a previous assassination attempt right outside the Golden Temple in Amritsar.
Twice in recent memory.
You have to question the severe intelligence failure happening here. How does a highly visible Z+ security level VIP get attacked in a densely populated, deeply significant religious space twice in such a short span of time?
It's a huge lapse.
Party leaders are already demanding a CBI probe. It highlights the immense difficulty of providing close-quarters security in religious spaces where large crowds and deep symbolism intersect. But a failure this glaring cannot just be written off.
It was a highly dangerous situation that easily could have been fatal. Now we shift from the urgent need for security on the ground to a sudden, strict enforcement of safety protocols in the sky.
If you are an airline pilot, your entire working life is about to change.
The Hindustan Times reports that starting today, August 13th, Air India and Air India Express are rolling out mandatory psychoactive substance screening for all 5,000 of their pilots.
All of them. Wow.
This sweeping new mandate was triggered by a terrifying incident on flight AI 2379 traveling from Phuket to Delhi. The aircraft suddenly dropped 300 feet in altitude.
That is a massive drop.
It is. In the aftermath, the captain tested positive for marijuana in both initial and confirmatory tests.
Yikes.
So going forward, testing will happen during training, immediately after flights, and at designated medical locations.
To fully grasp how big of a shift this is, you need to understand the current rules. The Directorate General of Civil Aviation currently only mandates random drug testing for 10% of airline employees annually.
10% to 100% is quite the leap.
Going from a 10% random sample to 100% mandatory screening for 5,000 pilots is monumental. It's like the strict standardization of alcohol breathalyzers, but for everything else. Think about the logistics. Pilots are constantly flying across global time zones, landing at different airports at 2 in the morning. Having medical personnel ready to conduct mandatory testing at all hours across multiple bases is an operational nightmare.
So is it an overreaction?
Well, is it a massive overreaction that will strain airline resources, or is it the bare minimum we should expect? When you are dealing with a metal tube flying at 30,000 feet, the public's tolerance for pilot impairment is absolute zero.
Hundreds of lives depend on the absolute sobriety of that crew. We will connect the enforcement of strict rules in aviation to the place where the nation's rules are actually debated and frequently derailed.
Derailed is exactly the right word for what just happened in Delhi.
The Hindu reports that the monsoon session of Parliament has officially concluded. Parliamentary Affairs Minister Karan took a victory lap, calling the session very successful because the government successfully passed 12 bills.
But there's a catch.
There is. He also had to acknowledge the actual productivity numbers, which tell a vastly different story. Productivity was abysmal, just 19% in the Lok Sabha and 39% in the Rajya Sabha.
19%.
Yes. The session finally ended with PM Modi and Amit Shah present for the traditional rendition of Vande Mataram, putting a cap on days filled with adjournments, loud protests, and legislation passed entirely without debate.
Wait, how can a session with 19% productivity in the lower house be called very successful?
It depends on your metric, I guess.
This highlights a stark divide. The government views success purely by the number of bills forced through, while the opposition is absolutely furious about how it happened.
Yeah, they were very vocal about that.
Congress MP Karti Chidambaram and Mallikarjun Kharge pointed out that their attempts to raise urgent concerns, specifically demanding accountability for the massive NEET paper leaks, were totally stonewalled.
The Home Minister did offer a debate, didn't he?
He apparently offered a debate, but the opposition rejected it, saying they wanted accountability, not a lecture. It really begs the question, when constant disruptions replace actual debate, who is winning?
Nobody.
Sure, the government gets its legislation passed, but the core democratic mechanism of parliamentary scrutiny is completely bypassed.
It is a legislative victory achieved entirely through procedural gridlock. Let's take the theme of struggling to perform in familiar territory and apply it to our national cricket team heading into entirely unfamiliar territory.
Unfamiliar is an understatement. This matchup defies all recent cricket history.
According to Cricinfo, India and Sri Lanka are gearing up for a two-match red ball test series starting August 15th in Sri Lanka. The incredible catch here is that this is their first red ball test series in Sri Lanka since 2017.
Nearly a decade.
Yeah. Both squads look completely different than they did a decade ago. India is entering this series without their star bowler Jasprit Bumrah, and they are being led by 26-year-old Shubman Gill.
And Sri Lanka.
Sri Lanka is led by Dhananjaya de Silva, and will be leaning heavily on their spinner, Prabhath Jayasuriya.
The stakes are incredibly high right now because of the World Test Championship standings. India is currently sitting at 5th place, and Sri Lanka is right behind them at 6th.
It's tight.
Both teams desperately need a series win to revive their campaigns. But the irony here is palpable. If you go back to between 2010 and 2017, India and Sri Lanka played each other constantly.
All the time.
But global financial priorities in cricket shifted. The schedule heavily pivoted toward more lucrative, high-revenue tours against teams like Australia and England. India simply hasn't prioritized a test tour in Sri Lanka in nearly a decade.
How does that impact the game?
Well, how does that lack of recent red ball exposure on Sri Lankan pitches level the playing field? Sri Lanka has been struggling, but taking away India's usual dominance through sheer unfamiliarity turns this into a series where absolutely anything could happen.
It will be a masterclass in adaptability for whichever squad comes out on top. Finally, we transition from the shifting financial priorities in global sports to a massive, aggressive shift in global trade policy.
And this shift is going to hit local businesses much harder than people realize.
We wrap up today with a major story from Reuters. The Trump administration has officially announced massive new tariffs on drone imports, and they are moving incredibly fast.
How fast?
These tariffs take effect in just 21 days. The breakdown is steep. It's a 100% tariff on sensitive drones, a 25% tariff on smaller consumer-grade drones, and most crucially, a 15% tariff on imports from key U.S. allies like the EU, Japan, South Korea, and Taiwan.
And the UK.
The UK is facing a 10% tariff. Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick stated this follows an investigation proving the U.S. is far too reliant on foreign sources, framing this as an urgent national security measure.
A 21-day timeline is practically overnight when you are dealing with global supply chains. Imposing a 100% tariff means that a $2,000 drone used by a local U.S. wedding photographer or an independent land surveyor is suddenly going to cost $4,000 in 3 weeks.
That's a huge hit to a small business.
It is, but you really have to push back on the justification here, especially regarding the allied nations. Why slap a 15% tariff on close partners like Japan and the UK?
That is the big question.
Is this genuinely about plugging national security vulnerabilities, or is it just the administration reverting to its favorite blunt instrument of foreign policy? The ones who will immediately pay the price aren't foreign governments. It's the domestic U.S. industries, agriculture, infrastructure, filmmaking that rely heavily on these specific tech tools.
It is a sweeping protectionist move, and we are going to see the ripple effects across multiple industries before the month is over.
Which brings us right back to the thought we opened with today. We like to imagine that the borders of authority, whether it's a state's constitutional right to tax its own minerals, a pilot's right to privacy versus public safety, or the established rules of global trade, are drawn in permanent ink. We want those lines to be stable and predictable.
But they simply aren't. They are being erased and redrawn in real time, often while we are distracted by political theater or historical debates over flags. As you navigate your own week, challenge yourself to look a little closer at the news. Ask yourself, which of these lines of authority are moving around you right now, and more importantly, who is actually holding the pen?
The systems we rely on are far more fluid than they appear. Keep questioning the narrative and keep a close eye on who is benefiting from those changing rules.
That is all for today's deep dive. Thank you for joining the conversation and exploring these headlines with us. We will catch you next time.
Take care, everyone.